So about a month later, we went, maybe it was less than that, but so we went to them, we had a second meeting, and at the second meeting, the people that run Reverge were talking to their business guys in the corner of the room, and Alex was talking to one of their guys slept somewhere else, and I was teaching one of the guys who had the most fighting game experience how to play. So I walked him through, like, here's how you do a fireball on a stick, here's how you do a dragon punch, and he finally got the dragon punch right after like 5 minutes. And then I was like, all right, now do that and hit 2 buttons at the same time. So he did it, and she did Fenrir. And everybody in the room stopped and looked up at the TV and said, do that again. So he did that again, because, you know, I mean, you look at it and you're like, hey, it's a fighting game, that's a pretty cool super, I guess. But like, to people that don't play fighting games, seeing that in HD with super shadows and, you know, her hair turns into a wolf. I mean, her hair turns into a wolf. If that's not a trope, it's pretty cool. Everybody in the room stopped, said, do that again. So he tried a couple more times, and then he did it again. And then they were like, okay, let's talk. Never underestimate what other people will find impressive about the thing that you're making, I guess, is one of the biggest things that you can learn if you want to sell other people on it. If they really think it's cool that your hula hoop is pink, rather than that it hovers, then let them think it's cool because it's pink. So they signed us, and then, yeah.
So when you had the second meeting with Autumn, and they were like, oh, how long ago was that to give us an idea of like how long it took to actually finish? Like how long ago was this story?
Oh, you're asking me about dates. This is awful. This is terrible. I have to go to the bathroom. Let's see. I don't know. I want to say, okay, so it came out this year. We started, or it was originally supposed to come out in November of last year, but in every project you always scope wrong. You always scope wrong, especially if you've never done it before. We thought we'd added enough buffer to be able to handle it. It turns out 2D art is a lot more work, and making 2D stuff on modern consoles is a lot more work than anyone thinks it is. So it took longer and it went over budget, but everything takes longer and goes over budget. It's just by how much. Let's see. So that was last November. So we would have started on it the previous November, and it would have been like 6 months before that. So maybe March of 10? 10 sounds about right, because Pandemic closed in 09 and we pitched for like 9 months. Maybe they closed in 08 and I'm all off by a year. But anyway, that's about how long.
Okay.
Give or take me not remembering anything.
For like 2 to 3 years?
Actually, the entirety of the development of Skullgirls was 1.5 years.
Okay.
Maybe like 8 months, which is very short for a game and is extremely short for a fighting game, because if you look at the stuff that like the King of Fighters people put up, it's like a year per character, and like BB is something like 5 or 6 months if I remember correctly. Yeah, it takes a long time to make a game, and most of it is not the actual game making. Most of it is trying to get paid, and then being agreed to get paid, and then not actually getting paid, and then trying to get paid some more, and then working for a little bit, and then figuring out how to do all the stuff that has nothing to do with the game, like invites, which are the spawn of Satan from an implementation standpoint, but are kind of awesome when they finally work, and you can't ship a game without them. You do definitely need people that have nothing to do with video games. Like, you need people who can figure out how to like make loading work, or you need artists that can do things like, you know, menu backgrounds and fonts. Yeah, it takes a lot more than everybody thinks it does to do anything that actually comes out as a finished product, because there are all these parts of it that you never see or that you never think about as a consumer that just kind of work, that you still have to go do as the developer. And remembering to include those in your initial estimate of scope is usually important, and we will totally do that from now on, which we didn't. So, where am I with the thing?
You were at after agreed to.
Oh, okay. I mean, after that, it was basically how much of the IP are we willing to give up? Turns out it was too much. How much of the budget will they be able to cover? Like working out things like, can they pay for office space? What do we think it'll actually cost? I mean, Skullgirls was much more expensive than we initially estimated that it would be, because we didn't know a lot of the things that we needed to include in it. And while, like I said, that happens to some extent on every project, we actually got really lucky with Autumn because despite any problems that we might have had with them, A, they were willing to listen to us when we said it's actually going to cost much more than we thought it would, and B, they were pretty nice as far as publishers go, because normally when you sign with a publisher, if you're a startup, they can do whatever they want. I mean, you sign the contract that we're going to produce this game, but if they come back and they say we really don't like how the main character looks, he needs to be 6 foot tall and green, you change it, or they stop paying you. Obviously, you can, when you've done more stuff, you can work out better agreements than this, but if it's your first game, generally, if they're going to be nice to you, they're going to take a huge cut, and if they're not going to take a huge cut, then they're going to reserve the right not to be nice. Autumn has been amazingly nice. Their whole mission statement, as far as I remember it from those long ago meetings, was something about they were founded by a bunch of people who worked at other game companies and were upset about how they treated their teams. So, I mean, we had rocky parts, yes, every company does, and Autumn was a startup just like we were a startup, so they had some of the same problems we did. But they let us make the game we wanted to make. They let us make it at mostly the time frame that we needed to actually make it at the level that we wanted to. They didn't come in and tell us to like change anything. I mean, you know, John Riccatello can go to the Madden team and say, I don't want this game to be about football anymore, and they have to comply. So that was pretty cool. They let us, I mean, they let me bring incompleted versions of They let me bring unfinished versions to tournaments all over the US. They paid for me to be flown to like East Coast Throwdown and stuff when we had 3 characters, because I kept on saying playtesting was important. Like the level of publicity and openness that we've been able to have about this project is pretty unprecedented in terms of game development, because they were nice enough to let us do it. And when we said this is what we should be doing, they said, okay, we hope you're not wrong. We might have been, but you can't underestimate how important it is that your publisher at least like respects you some. And while other problems like funding may seem like the single thing that you really need to worry about on a project like this, they totally aren't. There's way more that can go wrong than just not getting paid. And I'm serious, like, well, who knows what's NDA, so I probably should stop there. But many worse things can happen when the people who are in charge of you decide that they actually want to exercise all of the power that you've signed over to them. So when you're looking for people, I mean, you can't underestimate, yes, they're willing to pay for us, but like, do they look like good people to work with? Does their attitude seem like it's okay? You know, do they seem open to the types of things that I'm working on? Do they respect us as a developer? That's all pretty important. All right, what's next, PowerPoint Maven?
All right, so you talked about that. So talk about, I guess, the expectations before release, like right before you guys release it after. Like how you received
Expectations?
it. Yeah, like do you expect it to sell well, or did Autumn or anyone else, or publishers or distributors expect anything of you? Did you feel pressure? Just things like that.
Oh, well, I mean, I felt pressure to finish the game, but like, I am a typical game developer, which means business people hate me because I don't care how well the game sells. I care whether or not the people that I'm making it for are gonna like it. I don't know what the expectations are. I am bad at figuring out when it's gonna sell X number of copies. I'm bad at doing things like estimating how many copies Street Fighter Cross Tekken sold in April. I am the reason why you hire people that are not me to handle other parts of the game. And I am sure that we had sales expectations. In fact, I remember being told them at one point, but I don't remember what they were or are. I think I kind of know what our break-even point is, but I'm not actually 100% sure on that. Like, I go by, you know, do the people in the fighting game community enjoy it? Not did 75% of our demo downloads get converted into full purchases or not. Yeah?
Were you surprised when you guys broke 50K in 10 days?
I kind of was, because downloadable games tend to do awful, like awful, unless they're really heavily marketed, and we didn't have like print ads everywhere, you know, like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 on the side of the bus.
Right.
And we didn't have you know,
Commercials.
commercials or like anything like that. I mean, all of our publicity pretty much was me going places and being like, see, this game is pretty cool, you should totally try it, and then people would try it. I'm happy about it. I don't, like I said, since I don't remember what a break-even point is, I don't know how happy I am about it. But yeah, it's surreal. Like, the scale is totally different from most of the other stuff, because at a big budget company, right, when the game company is spending $40 million on a project, that project cannot do badly, right? That's why you see sequels, that's why you see, you know, that cracked article when they had screenshots from E3 like 2 years ago, where they had 5 screenshots and they talked about what an awesome game it was, and then at the bottom they told you that all of those screenshots were from different first-person shooters. They just all looked exactly the same and were all gray and had cities and blood streaks across the screen when you got hit. You see that stuff because that's the stuff that they know will bring enough of a return without having to like bet on it, that's what they'll fund. So if you're working on a $40 million game, if you don't sell, you know, the projected number of copies, which everybody on the team knows and is extremely important, and you don't do things to your target demographic, right? If your target demographic is 14-year-old males, you had damn well make sure that you have whatever 14-year-old males like, which I don't remember anymore, probably surfboards or something. So 14-year-old girls. So, like, that's, I mean, people at investor meetings would ask things like, who's your target demographic? And like, I don't know, people who play fighting games. So, this was an interestingly different project for most of the stuff that I did at Pandemic. Like, I started out by saying it's a different scale. I mean, Star Wars Battlefront 2, which I'm proud to have been on because it was a lot of fun, sold 8 million copies over the lifetime of the game. That's lots more than 50,000, but they were on PS2, which had a huge market penetration, which is another one of those words you gotta learn when you're in game development, right? How many people own it? Because if 6 people have the Wii, then you can't sell Wii games to 20 people. Or, I mean, you can if you market it really well, but you probably won't. So the PS2 had like, you know, 100 million or whatever units sold. So if you made a PS2 game and you sold it to 5% of the people who own PS2s, that was a huge number of people. Downloadable games tend to do worse simply because they don't get advertised, and like in some other countries, like in Japan, nobody downloads anything. We were actually kind of fortunate, or I guess kind of happy, because one of the people that worked at Microsoft tweeted something about Skullgirls caused a surge in US point card purchases in Japan when it came out, so that was kind of neat. But yeah, it depends what you're aiming for. So like, we were pretty happy about 50K because, you know, I was figuring like 500 copies. Yes. I mean, like, honestly, when I went into this, I had kind of an idea of what fighting games sold. I mean, like, I was forced to do more research as, you know, we went on. But like, I didn't have any idea. I mean, the people above me, it's their job to have some kind of idea. So, yeah, it's doing pretty well. If people are still playing it in 6 months, that's what I consider a success.
So, what was the intention behind, like, or who chose maybe going Xbox over PlayStation 3 or solely Xbox?
Oh, you mean like when we decided which console was going to be on? We didn't really want to do console exclusive because normally the reason why you do console exclusive is that the publisher says, if you come out on just our console, we will drive a dump truck full of money up to your house and let you look at it for a couple hours. You can't keep any of it because they're the publisher. But we never really wanted to be exclusive. I was kind of scared of developing on PS3 because it really is more difficult than on Xbox for a lot of reasons, and was more painful. But like, we started on PS3 because we received PS3 dev kits first. So that became the version that we worked on for a long time. And then the 360 was a port at the end. So we never really wanted to be exclusive because also if you're a new game and you're exclusive, unless you are heavily marketed or you are, I guess, Fez, you shoot yourself in the foot by doing it, because unless you come out and you sell 1 million copies like Braid did, you miss out on this whole other base of people that could possibly have bought your game. For fighting games, it's also like, you don't want to do just one console because it's important that people have other people to play against. right? So in some places, lots of people play on PS3. In some places, lots of people play on 360. If you are trying to do a game that